How's it going, folks? Stu here. Damien Chazelle is a director I'm a very big fan of. He's taken us to many different places across his film career. We started with a wonderful, dramatic and gripping, tense character study in the drumming world. Then we got a jazz-infused LA musical rom-com. And then we went to the moon, of all places. And now with Babylon, which is just about to come out into UK cinemas, he kind of went yes to everything. He went yes to everything. This film's got a lot in it, which means a lot to unpack. I saw it. Let's attempt to talk about it. So Babylon is a film which revels in its outrageous kind of excess. And as such, I don't think I can concretely, comprehensively just narrow down a synopsis for you. So all I will say is that it is a film about a specific moment in Hollywood's history when we are moving from silent films to talkies. Which, side note, is the cutest one. Talkies, that's so cute. Yeah. That is the elevator pitch, but obviously there's a lot going on in this film. This 3-hour film, 3 hours, 8 minutes, something like that. So it's a big, bold, loud, outrageous, excessive kind of epic from Chazelle. In many ways, feels a lot like the filmmaking culmination of everything we've seen from him so far. It doesn't all work, but I was very, very impressed by a lot of this film, and I did really, really like it overall. Chazelle's direction here is just as energetic and filled with character as we've seen from him before. I mean, throughout his filmography, we've seen him with an approach to music and rhythm within his direction and the way he approaches sequences, and Babylon is almost like a full 3-hour-long sequence of sequences that all utilize lots of Chazelle's many talents as a director. I mean, we open up with this kind of outrageous comedy scene which ends up evolving into this big, long, wild party, which just feels like a naturally kind of immediate, like, throw everything at the wall from Chazelle as a filmmaker, and is a very, very impressive cinematic feat. I mean, just the way that Chazelle moves his camera through moments, following characters through sequences, following characters through big things going on, lots of distractions around the frame, but never losing sight of the focal point of the camera, the frame, and the sequence. It is a serious talent, and Chazelle is very, very good at it at this point. But if you were thinking that maybe this is the film where he stops doing extreme, very quick zoom-ins to trumpet players, let me tell you something, there might be more in this film than his other ones. But I think for the most part, it really does kind of effectively create this chaotic, frantic energy. And the other side of that, of course, is the music. And I think, again, Justin Hurwitz here, who scores the film, has proven that he is just the guy to go to for Chazelle's films. Such a bombastic and energetic score, which always feels appropriate and always feels big and loud in a way which is satisfying for the film. And that franticness carries over into the editing of the film, which has a very tall task ahead of it in guiding us through such a big, loud, and wild film. And I don't know that the editing always lands the decisions it's going for, but it is remarkably impressive and effective at guiding us through everything that's going on, the complete excess that exists in basically every department that's working in this film. It's also a big player, I think, in the comedy, and I think there's a lot of real, genuine humor to the film, which comes out of the cuts and the differences and the contrast between characters and between big moments. And I love seeing films which put themselves firmly in the behind the scenes element of an industry. There's something just incredibly satisfying and effective about it, and I think creative about it. It's always fun seeing things being made and seeing what's going into certain things. And obviously this is a film which heightens a lot of personalities and industry moments and things that happen behind the scenes, although I imagine some are probably not as heightened as we'd expect. And I like the way that the music, editing, cinematography all uses that effectively as a tool. It all uses that kind of creativity, that behind the scenes, that sort of makeshifting things, building things. And they do play a very vital role, I think, in making this 3-hour-long film feel like it's not just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And I've seen a lot of people refer to this film as a mess, and I don't wholly disagree with them overall, but I think that calling it a mess does kind of lose sight of the fact that I think it's intentionally messy, and I think it's by design, and I think it's a talent in itself to be able to make something messy feel coherent, and I do think it does that on the whole for the first 2 hours of this film. But I do think that the last hour of the film is where the threads sort of start to unravel. The best comparison I can think of is that the first few hours of this film is like a big ball of yarn, right? It's a ball, you know what it is, but you can see that it's this big kind of scraggle of lines. It feels wild, but it's contained. And then as the film gets going and as you get into its last hour, that ball just starts to kind of unthread a bit, and we just get a bit of a tangly mess towards the end. And it is ultimately the reason why I don't think that in the end I was as excited and in love with the film as I might have been if you'd stopped me halfway through it. There are certain characters in the film and their storylines and their trajectories which just feel a little bit less effective than others. One of those namely being Diego Calva, who I think is great in the film, but whose character feels like it just sort of gets thrown things when it needs to for the narrative's sake, and it just takes you on paths which don't feel as satisfyingly irreverent and wild as other people's paths do in the film. The latter half of the film, I think, deals a lot more with him, and the ending, I think, deals a lot more with him in a way which would have felt much more satisfying if it had effectively got those building blocks right as it went along. But he is great in the film, and in fact, everyone is doing really good work in the film. I think performances are something I don't really have a problem with in the film. I don't think anyone's dropping the ball, and in fact, I think everyone's bringing their A game and really add to the overall energy of the film. Margot Robbie's character is nuts, and she's really clearly having a fun time with that character, which I think is really effective. I also, as I just said, did really love Diego Calva in the film. I think he brings this kind of warmth and charm to the film, which I think is essential and would have been seriously lacking without him. Gene Smart's great in the film, delivers some really poignant moments and some of the more effective, I think, moments where we clearly see Chazelle coming through as a writer in his very angry and I suppose cynical point of view in this film. And I really liked the kind of thematic motives that the characters are inhabiting and the way that they are illuminating certain things within the industry. I like the way that this film posits itself in a specific moment in time where technology is changing and people have to adapt and people don't know how to adapt, and we just see the sort of messiness of that. I think that really quite eerily reflects the moment we're going through at the moment with the cinema, which I think is a very smart and quite clearly intentional move from Chazelle. I think it raises very interesting and sincere themes and ideas about how Hollywood as a machine, as an industry, sort of picks and chooses who it wants to bring up and who it wants to shatter back down, and the way it uses and exploits people of different backgrounds. I think that's an interesting thread of the film as well. But the biggest slip up, I think, for the film that I think almost arguably undermines pretty much every aspect of that and everything I've just spoken about in the video is its ending, which is gonna work for a lot of people, and I know worked for a lot of people, but just felt so alarmingly lazy and choppy and reductive. It feels creatively strange and weird, and I'm not sure it's the right creative decision for the film. And I don't want to spoil too many things, but I think especially in terms of the editing and the way scenes are constructed, it just sort of unravels a bit with the ending. There is a lot more I could be talking about with Babylon. There are many other things which I think it does very well, and many other things which I think it really slips up on. But overall, I did have a really good time. I think it's a really strong film overall, and I'd like to see it again to see if my rating goes up and if certain problems I have with the latter half end up kind of working in the context of knowing where it all goes. But what about you guys? Have you caught Babylon yet? Are you excited to check it out? It's out over here in the UK on Friday. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. We'll have a little chat. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see me talk about more shit, go ahead and click subscribe. Buttons down there for that, as well as my socials, my letterboxd, and a 30-day free trial for MUBI code, which is always fun. All of that down there. Click on whatever you want to click on. Have a fun old time. I'll see you guys soon for some more thoughts and more films. But until next time, I think I need to go shower after this film because it's a lot like a night at Inferno's, right? There's a lot of poop and throw up. It's kind of gross.